You watched the first video, you made changes, you switched to wet food, you added a scratching post, you started scheduled feeding, and you felt good about the decisions you were making for your cat. And then you realize something. There are still questions you haven't answered, decisions you're still making on autopilot based on assumptions you've never actually examined. Should your cat wear a collar? You put one on them because it seemed like the obvious thing to do. But do you know what the research says about collar safety? Should you be using a water fountain instead of a bowl? You've seen them in pet stores and wondered, but never looked into whether it actually matters. Is grain-free food actually better? Or is it one of the most successful marketing myths in the pet food industry? If you adopted your cat from a shelter, was that the right decision? And if you bought from a breeder, do you know what you should have looked for? These are not small questions. These are decisions that affect your cat's health, their safety, and their quality of life every single day. And most cat owners are getting at least some of them wrong, not because they don't care, but because the right information has never been laid out clearly enough to act on. That's what this video is. The second installment of every major cat decision compared. 10 more decisions, 10 more verdicts, 10 more times where the guessing stops and the knowing begins. We are going to compare water fountains to water bowls, and the difference in your cat's kidney health may shock you. We are going to look at collars versus no collars, and the safety data will change how you think about something you probably consider completely routine. We are going to examine grain-free food versus grain-inclusive food and cut through the marketing noise to find out what the science actually says. We are going to compare shelter adoption to breeder purchase with complete honesty about both sides. We are going to look at homemade cat food versus commercial food, automatic feeders versus manual feeding, Catios versus leash training, hard carriers versus soft carriers, chemical flea prevention versus natural alternatives, and whether keeping cats separate at night is better or worse than letting them share sleeping spaces. Every comparison follows the same format you know from the first video. Real facts about both sides, the science, the verdict, and a clear answer about which choice is right for which type of cat owner, because the right answer is not always the same for everyone. If you haven't watched the first video yet, the link is in the description. Everything in this video builds on the foundation we laid there, and watching both together gives you the most complete picture available anywhere of what your cat actually needs from you. For those of you who are back, welcome. Let's get back to work. Your cat is counting on you to get this right. And after this video, you will. This is 10 more cat decisions you've been getting wrong. Comparison 1. Water fountain versus water bowl. Of all the comparisons in this video, this is the one that has the most direct, most measurable, and most immediately actionable impact on your cat's long-term health. It is also the comparison that most cat owners have never seriously considered, because a water bowl is so ordinary, so universal, so obviously adequate, that questioning it feels unnecessary. Every cat has a water bowl. Every cat drinks from it. What could possibly be wrong with that? Quite a lot, as it turns out. And the consequences of getting this particular decision wrong accumulate so silently in an organ system that shows no obvious symptoms until significant damage has already occurred, that most cat owners never connect their cat's kidney disease at age 12 to the water bowl that sat untouched in the corner for years. Let's start with why cats and water have a complicated relationship that most owners fundamentally misunderstand. We established in the first video that cats evolved as desert-adapted predators, whose primary water source was the moisture content of their prey. Their thirst drive is significantly weaker than that of dogs or humans, precisely because their bodies evolved to extract water from food rather than to seek it out independently. A cat who is eating prey-appropriate food with 65 to 70% moisture content does not need to drink much additional water because their dietary intake is meeting most of their hydration needs. The problem is that most domestic cats are not eating prey-appropriate food. They are eating dry kibble with 6 to 10% moisture content, or wet food that partially addresses the moisture deficit, and they are relying on a water bowl to make up the difference. And here is the critical issue. Their weak thirst drive, which evolved for a life where food provided most of their water, does not adequately compensate for the dramatic reduction in dietary moisture. Cats eating dry food are almost always in a state of mild chronic dehydration, even when fresh water is available in a bowl, because their drive to seek out and drink water is simply not strong enough to fully compensate for the moisture deficit in their diet. This chronic mild dehydration is the primary driver of the kidney disease epidemic in domestic cats. Kidneys need adequate hydration to function properly, to filter waste products efficiently, to produce appropriately dilute urine, and to maintain the tissue health that prevents the progressive scarring that characterizes chronic kidney disease. Years of mild dehydration stress the kidneys in ways that accumulate imperceptibly until the damage is significant enough to cause measurable dysfunction. The water fountain enters this picture as an intervention that addresses one of the key reasons cats don't drink enough from bowls. Cats are instinctively attracted to moving water. In the wild, moving water is fresher, cooler, and safer to drink than stagnant water. Still water in a bowl is, from an evolutionary perspective, exactly the kind of water source that cats learn to be cautious about. Moving water, a stream, a river, a trickle from a spring, signals freshness and safety in ways that a still bowl does not. The research on water intake in cats offered fountains versus bowls is consistent and significant. Multiple studies have found that cats drink meaningfully more water when it is provided through a fountain rather than a stationary bowl. The increased intake is not marginal. Some studies show increases of 50% or more in daily water consumption when cats have access to a fountain. For a cat who is chronically mildly dehydrated from a dry food diet, a 50% increase in water intake is a genuinely significant health intervention. The mechanism behind this preference is both instinctive and sensory. Moving water produces sound that attracts cats' attention in ways that still water does not. Moving water stays oxygenated, which affects its taste in ways that cats detect. Moving water is typically cooler than still water that has been sitting at room temperature, and the visual movement of water activates cats' predatory attention in a way that makes the water source more interesting and more salient in their environment. There is also a bowl placement issue that affects hydration independently of whether a fountain is used, and it deserves mention here because it is one of the most common and most easily corrected hydration mistakes. Many cat owners place the water bowl directly next to the food bowl, which seems logical from a human perspective. In nature, however, water sources and prey are not found in the same location. A water source near a kill site would be contaminated by the kill. Cats instinctively avoid water that is placed near their food, and many cats drink significantly less when their water is adjacent to their food than when it is placed at a distance. Moving the water bowl to a different location from the food bowl, even across the room, increases water intake in many cats without any other change. Multiple water sources distributed around the home increase overall intake further. A cat who has a water bowl in the kitchen, a fountain in the living room, and a bowl in the bedroom has significantly more opportunities to drink incidentally throughout the day than a cat with a single water source in one location. The goal is to make water available everywhere the cat spends time, not just in the designated feeding area. Let's talk about the practical realities of water fountains, because they have genuine advantages and genuine disadvantages that both deserve honest assessment. The advantages beyond the increased water intake are real. Fountains typically have filtration systems, usually carbon filters, that remove impurities and improve water taste. The constant circulation prevents the stagnation and bacterial growth that occurs in still bowls that are not changed frequently enough. Many cats who refuse to drink adequately from bowls drink enthusiastically from fountains, making the fountain a meaningful health intervention for cats who are chronically underhydrated. The disadvantages are also real. Fountains require regular maintenance that bowls do not. The pump needs to be cleaned regularly to prevent biofilm buildup that can actually increase bacterial contamination if maintenance is neglected. The filter needs to be replaced on schedule. The fountain needs to be disassembled and thoroughly cleaned weekly to prevent the slime and mineral deposits that accumulate with use. A poorly maintained fountain is not better than a well-maintained bowl. It may be worse. The health benefits of a fountain depend entirely on the owner's commitment to keeping it clean. Fountain noise is a consideration for some cats and some households. Most quality fountains produce minimal noise, but some cats are sensitive to any unfamiliar sound and may initially avoid a fountain that produces even subtle pump noise. Introduction of a fountain should be gradual, placing it near the existing bowl initially and allowing the cat to investigate at their own pace before removing the bowl entirely. The cost of fountains varies considerably. Basic plastic fountains are available for relatively modest prices, but tend to harbor bacteria in their porous surfaces and are harder to clean thoroughly. Stainless steel and ceramic fountains are significantly easier to keep hygienic, more durable, and generally preferred by cats who are sensitive to the taste of plastic. The upfront cost of a quality stainless steel or ceramic fountain is higher, but represents better long-term value for both the owner's effort and the cat's health. Whisker fatigue is a related consideration that affects bowl choice even beyond the fountain question. Cats' whiskers are highly sensitive sensory organs, and deep, narrow bowls that cause the whiskers to contact the sides while eating or drinking can cause genuine discomfort that leads cats to eat or drink less than they otherwise would. Wide, shallow bowls that allow cats to eat and drink without their whiskers touching the sides are preferable for both food and water. And this principle applies to fountain design as well. The best cat fountains have wide, shallow drinking surfaces rather than narrow spouts or deep basins. Let's address the question of water temperature, because it affects intake in ways that are easy to address once you know about them. Most cats prefer cool water, and water that has been sitting at room temperature for hours is less appealing than fresh, cool water. Changing water bowls more frequently, placing bowls away from heat sources, and choosing fountains that maintain water at a cooler temperature through their circulation and evaporation all increase palatability. Some owners add a few ice cubes to water bowls in warm weather, which many cats find enormously appealing, and which increases intake during periods when dehydration risk is elevated. The verdict: a water fountain is a meaningful health investment for most cats, particularly those eating dry food or those with any history of urinary tract issues or kidney concerns. The research on increased water intake is consistent, the mechanism is well understood, and the practical benefit for kidney and urinary health is real enough that the investment in a quality fountain is justified for most cat owners. The fountain must be maintained properly to deliver its benefits. A neglected fountain is not better than a clean bowl. Commit to weekly cleaning and regular filter replacement, or the investment defeats its purpose. If a fountain is not feasible, maximize bowl-based hydration by placing multiple water sources in different locations throughout the home, keeping water fresh by changing it at least once daily, using wide, shallow bowls that accommodate whiskers comfortably, placing water away from food, and considering occasional ice cubes in warm weather. The water bowl in the corner that your cat walks past every day may be one of the most overlooked health factors in their life. It costs almost nothing to improve it, and for a cat whose kidneys are quietly working harder than they should be, that improvement may matter more than you will ever be able to measure. Comparison 2: collar versus no collar. Ask 100 cat owners whether their cat should wear a collar, and the majority will say yes without hesitation. Of course, cats should wear collars. Collars have ID tags. ID tags have phone numbers. If the cat gets lost, someone finds them, reads the tag, calls the number, and the cat comes home. The logic is so straightforward, so obviously correct, that most people never think past it. The collar goes on the cat the day they come home and stays there for the rest of their life, and the owner feels responsible and prepared because their cat is identified. What most of those owners don't know is that collars kill cats. Not rarely, not in exotic circumstances. In ordinary, everyday situations that happen in ordinary homes, to ordinary cats whose owners had no idea the collar they put on their cat with the best possible intentions was a genuine safety hazard. This comparison is not going to tell you that collars are always wrong or that cats should never wear them. It is going to give you the complete picture of the risks and benefits, explain the specific collar designs that eliminate most of the danger, and help you make a genuinely informed decision rather than an assumption-based one. Let's start with the identification argument for collars, because it is real and it deserves honest engagement before we discuss the risks. A cat who escapes or gets lost and is wearing a visible ID tag is more likely to be returned home quickly than a cat with no visible identification. This is simply true. A neighbor who finds a cat with a tag can call the number immediately without needing to take the cat to a veterinary practice or shelter to be scanned for a microchip. The immediacy of visible identification has genuine value, particularly for cats who are indoor-outdoor or who live in areas where escapes are more likely. The collar also serves as a visual signal that a cat is owned. A cat without a collar in some communities may be assumed to be stray or feral and treated accordingly, including being trapped and brought to a shelter. A collar communicates ownership at a glance in a way that a microchip, invisible beneath the skin, cannot. These are real benefits. They are the reasons collars became standard practice, and the reasons many cat owners and animal welfare organizations continue to recommend them. But they need to be weighed against risks that are equally real and significantly more serious than most collar advocates acknowledge. The most dangerous collar-related risk is entrapment. Cats are extraordinary climbers and explorers who regularly put themselves into situations that expose their collars to snag hazards. Fence posts, tree branches, wire, the gaps in shelving, heating vents, door hinges, and literally hundreds of other ordinary objects in both indoor and outdoor environments can catch a collar. When a collar catches on something and the cat cannot free themselves, the outcomes range from distress and struggle to serious injury to death by strangulation or positional asphyxia. These are not theoretical risks. Veterinary practices see collar entrapment injuries regularly. The injuries range from collar-induced wounds, where a too tight collar has abraded or cut into the neck's skin over time, to acute entrapment injuries where the struggle to free a caught collar has caused lacerations, tracheal damage, or jaw injuries when a leg becomes caught in the collar during the escape attempt. The deaths from collar entrapment are harder to quantify, because many happen outdoors and are never discovered or recorded, but they are documented and they are not rare. The leg and collar scenario deserves specific mention because it is one of the most common collar-related injuries and one that many owners have never considered. Cats groom extensively, and in the course of grooming, they frequently pass a rear leg over their head. If a collar is present, the leg can become caught inside the collar during this movement. A cat with a leg trapped inside their collar is in immediate distress and will struggle to free themselves. The struggling causes the collar to tighten against both the neck and the trapped limb, creating a situation where the cat cannot free themselves without intervention and where prolonged entrapment causes serious injury to both the neck and the leg. Indoor cats are not immune to collar risks. The indoor environment contains plenty of snag hazards, and the leg and collar scenario happens regardless of whether the cat is indoors or outdoors. Many owners assume that indoor cats are safe to wear collars because they are not exposed to the outdoor hazards of fences and branches. This assumption underestimates the snag potential of ordinary household objects and ignores the grooming-related entrapment risk entirely. The breakaway collar was developed specifically to address the entrapment risk, and it is the single most important development in collar safety. A breakaway collar has a special clasp designed to release under a specific level of tension, allowing the collar to come free when a cat becomes entrapped rather than tightening and holding. When the collar catches on something and the cat struggles, the tension on the clasp releases the collar, freeing the cat before serious injury occurs. Breakaway collars are not perfect. The release mechanism must be calibrated carefully. A clasp that releases too easily will come off during normal activity, defeating the identification purpose of the collar. A clasp that requires too much tension to release may not function in time to prevent injury in a rapid entrapment situation. Quality matters significantly in breakaway collar design, and cheap breakaway collars with poorly engineered clasps may not release reliably when needed. The fit of a breakaway collar is also critical. The traditional guideline of fitting a collar so that 2 fingers can be slipped beneath it applies to breakaway collars as well, but the fit must work in conjunction with the breakaway mechanism. A collar fitted too loosely may release during normal activity or may allow the leg-in-collar scenario to occur more easily. A collar fitted too tightly may not release quickly enough in an entrapment. Working with a veterinarian or experienced feline specialist to fit a breakaway collar correctly is worth the effort. Elastic safety collars, which incorporate a section of elastic that allows the collar to stretch if caught or if a leg becomes trapped, are an alternative to full breakaway designs. The elastic provides some give that can prevent the worst consequences of entrapment without the collar coming off entirely. However, elastic collars have their own failure mode. The elastic can age, harden, and lose its stretch, turning a safety collar into a standard collar without the owner realizing it. Regular inspection and replacement of elastic collars is essential to maintaining their safety function. Now let's talk about microchips, because the microchip versus collar debate is where the identification argument gets most nuanced. A microchip is a small transponder, approximately the size of a grain of rice, implanted under the skin between the shoulder blades. It carries a unique identification number that can be read by a scanner and matched to owner contact information in a registry database. Microchipping is a permanent, passive identification method that requires no maintenance, cannot fall off, cannot be removed without veterinary intervention, and poses no ongoing safety risk to the cat. The limitations of microchips for identification purposes are real. A found cat must be taken to a veterinary practice or animal shelter with a compatible scanner for the chip to be read. Not all scanners read all chip frequencies, though universal scanners have become more common. The chip is only useful if the owner has registered it and kept their contact information current in the registry, which a significant proportion of microchipped pet owners fail to do. And the average person who finds a cat does not know to look for a microchip or where to have it scanned. The combination of a breakaway collar with an ID tag and a microchip addresses the limitations of each individual identification method. The collar provides immediate visible identification accessible to anyone who finds the cat. The microchip provides permanent backup identification that persists if the collar comes off, which breakaway collars inevitably do at some point. Together, they provide the most complete identification protection available. For exclusively indoor cats, the identification argument for collars is weaker because the probability of the cat being found by a stranger is low. The risk of collar-related injury, however, is not significantly lower indoors than outdoors for the reasons we've discussed. For indoor cats, a microchip alone provides adequate identification protection for the rare escape scenario while eliminating the ongoing daily collar risk. Many veterinarians and feline specialists now recommend microchipping without collars for exclusively indoor cats, reserving collar use for cats with regular outdoor access, where visible identification has more practical value. GPS tracking collars represent a newer category that deserves mention. These devices, which attach to a collar and allow owners to track their cat's location in real time through a smartphone application, have become increasingly popular as the technology has improved and the devices have become lighter and smaller. For outdoor cats in areas where loss is a genuine concern, GPS tracking provides a level of location monitoring that neither ID tags nor microchips can offer. The safety considerations of the collar itself still apply to GPS collar devices, and breakaway mechanisms need to be incorporated into their design. The better GPS cat tracker manufacturers have addressed this, but it remains an important consideration when evaluating specific products. The verdict. For indoor-outdoor cats, a properly fitted breakaway collar with a current ID tag combined with a microchip registration that is kept up to date provides the best combination of visible identification and safety. The breakaway mechanism is not optional. A standard non-breakaway collar on an outdoor cat is a genuine safety hazard that the identification benefit does not justify. For exclusively indoor cats, a microchip alone is the safest and most practical identification solution. The collar risk, while lower indoors than outdoors, is not zero, and the identification benefit of a collar for a cat who rarely leaves the home does not outweigh the ongoing daily entrapment risk. If you currently have a non-breakaway collar on your cat, please replace it with a breakaway collar or remove it entirely. The collar that feels like a responsible safety measure may be the single most dangerous object your cat wears every day. The solution is not to remove identification, it is to provide identification in a form that doesn't put your cat at risk in the process. Comparison 3. Adopting from shelter versus buying from breeder. This comparison exists in a space where practical decisions and ethical considerations overlap in ways that make most people uncomfortable. It is a topic where people have strong feelings, where judgment flows freely in both directions, and where the loudest voices on either side tend to oversimplify a genuinely complex situation. The Adopt Don't Shop movement has done enormous good in raising awareness about shelter populations and the consequences of irresponsible breeding. It has also, in some of its more absolutist expressions, dismissed legitimate reasons for choosing a breeder and shamed people who made thoughtful, responsible decisions into feeling like they did something wrong. The honest truth is that this decision, like most decisions in this video, is more nuanced than either side's bumper sticker version of it. There are genuinely good reasons to adopt from a shelter. There are genuinely good reasons to work with a responsible breeder. There are genuinely bad versions of both options that deserve to be identified and avoided. And there is an ethical dimension to this choice that deserves honest engagement rather than either dismissal or weaponization. Let's start with the shelter adoption case, because the numbers alone make it the most important place to begin. Millions of cats enter shelters every year in the United States alone. The most recent comprehensive estimates suggest somewhere between 3 and 4 million cats are admitted to American shelters annually. Of these, a significant proportion are euthanized, not because they are sick or dangerous, but because there are not enough homes for them. The specific euthanasia numbers have improved dramatically over the past 2 decades as the no-kill movement has transformed shelter practices. But the problem of feline overpopulation and the shortage of homes relative to the number of cats who need them remains serious, real, and ongoing. Every cat adopted from a shelter is a cat whose life is saved directly. Every home that chooses adoption over purchase is a home that contributes to reducing the demand that drives irresponsible breeding. These facts are not guilt trip ammunition. They are the mathematical reality of the situation, and they carry genuine moral weight that any honest assessment of this decision must acknowledge. Beyond the ethical dimension, shelter adoption offers practical advantages that are often undersold in the adopt, don't shop conversation. Adult cats in shelters can be assessed for temperament, personality, and behavioral tendencies in ways that kittens from any source cannot. A shelter worker who has spent weeks with a specific cat can tell you whether that cat is confident or anxious, social or selective, tolerant of handling or sensitive about certain types of touch, good with other animals, or better as a solo pet. This information is genuinely valuable and represents a level of pre-adoption knowledge that purchasing a kitten, whether from a shelter or a breeder, cannot provide. The cost of shelter adoption is dramatically lower than purchasing from a breeder. Adoption fees, which typically cover spaying or neutering, initial vaccinations, microchipping, and a health examination, represent excellent value for the services included. The money not spent on purchase price can be directed toward high-quality food, appropriate enrichment, and veterinary care throughout the cat's life, all of which directly benefit the cat's well-being. Shelter cats come in every possible combination of age, personality, and physical appearance. The idea that shelters are full of problem cats with behavioral issues that got them surrendered is a myth we addressed in the first video. The vast majority of shelter cats are there for reasons entirely unrelated to their character. Landlord policies, owner illness or death, family circumstances, moving, allergies. These cats are not damaged goods. They are wonderful animals waiting for someone to look past the cage and see them. Now let's talk about the case for working with a responsible breeder, because it is legitimate and it deserves presentation without apology. Predictability is the core argument for purebred cats from responsible breeders, and we covered it in the first video. If you have specific requirements for a companion animal, whether that is a particular size, coat type, energy level, or temperament profile, a reputable breeder of an established breed offers a substantially higher probability of getting those characteristics than shelter adoption. This matters more for some people than others, and it is not a trivial consideration for those for whom it matters. Health testing is what separates responsible breeders from irresponsible ones, and it is the primary criterion by which any potential breeder should be evaluated. A responsible breeder tests their breeding cats for the genetic health conditions known to affect their breed. Maine Coon breeders test for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Persian breeders test for polycystic kidney disease. Ragdoll breeders test for HCM and blood type incompatibilities. These tests exist because the conditions they screen for are real, they are heritable, and responsible breeders have committed to reducing their prevalence through selective breeding rather than perpetuating them for the sake of appearance or convenience. A breeder who does not perform appropriate health testing is not a responsible breeder, regardless of how nice their cattery looks or how reasonable their prices are. Health testing is not optional for ethical breeding. It is the foundation of ethical breeding. Any breeder who cannot provide documentation of current health testing for their breeding cats should be disqualified from consideration immediately. Socialization practices distinguish responsible breeders from backyard breeders as clearly as health testing does. Kittens raised in a home environment, handled daily from birth, exposed to household sounds and activities, introduced to different people during the socialization window, and kept with their mother and litter mates until at least 12 weeks of age, arrive at their new homes with the neurological foundation for confident, comfortable adult life that we discussed in the socialization comparison. Kittens raised in isolation, in outdoor catteries with minimal human contact, or separated from their mothers too early, arrive with socialization deficits that may take years to address, and that some cats never fully overcome. When evaluating a breeder, ask to see where the kittens are raised, not the show cats or the breeding adults. The kittens, in the environment where they spend their first weeks of life. A responsible breeder will welcome this request. A breeder who is evasive about showing you the kitten's living environment is a breeder with something to hide. The waiting list is a feature of responsible breeders that many buyers find frustrating, but that is actually a quality indicator. A responsible breeder who health tests, properly socializes their kittens, limits their breeding to ensure individual attention for each litter, and places kittens only after thorough vetting of potential homes will not have kittens available on demand. A breeder who always has kittens available immediately is a breeder who is producing kittens faster than they can be properly cared for, which is the definition of irresponsible breeding. Breed-specific rescues occupy an interesting middle ground in this comparison that deserves specific mention. For virtually every established cat breed, there are rescue organizations that specialize in rehoming cats of that breed. These organizations have cats available for adoption at shelter-level fees, while providing the breed-specific knowledge and temperament assessment that general shelters may lack. For someone who wants a specific breed but wants to adopt rather than purchase, breed-specific rescue is an excellent option that combines the ethical dimension of adoption with the predictability dimension of breed selection. Searching for breed-specific rescues before contacting a breeder is a step that more people should take. The kitten mill problem in the purebred cat world mirrors the puppy mill problem that has received more public attention. Kitten mills are large-scale commercial breeding operations that prioritize volume and profit over the health and welfare of the cats involved. Breeding cats in kitten mills are kept in inadequate conditions, bred repeatedly without appropriate health recovery time, given minimal veterinary care, and socialized poorly or not at all. The kittens produced are sold through pet stores, online marketplaces, and directly to buyers who are drawn by the relatively low prices and immediate availability that kitten mill operations offer. Identifying kitten mill operations requires knowing what to look for. Red flags include multiple breeds available simultaneously, kittens always available without waiting lists, refusal to allow visits to the breeding facility, prices significantly below breed standard market rates, lack of health testing documentation, kittens available before 12 weeks of age, and pressure to complete the purchase quickly. Any of these red flags individually warrants caution. Multiple red flags together warrant walking away entirely. The online marketplace for purebred kittens is particularly problematic because it allows kitten mill operators to present a professional appearance through attractive websites and carefully curated photographs without the transparency that an in-person visit would provide. The most important rule for anyone purchasing a purebred kitten is to never purchase a kitten without visiting the breeding environment in person. Video calls are better than nothing but can be staged. There is no substitute for seeing where and how the kittens are raised with your own eyes. Let's address the financial dimension of this comparison honestly, because it affects real decisions in real households, and pretending it doesn't exist helps no one. Purebred kittens from responsible breeders of popular breeds cost anywhere from several hundred to several $1,000s. For many households, this price point is simply not accessible, regardless of how legitimate the breeder is or how much they might prefer a specific breed. This financial reality is not a moral failing, it is a circumstance. And for households where shelter adoption is the financially accessible option, the practical and ethical case for adoption is compelling entirely on its own terms, without requiring any reference to the breeder alternative. The verdict: shelter. Adoption is the choice with the strongest ethical foundation, the most practical identification information about the specific cat, the lowest financial barrier, and the most direct impact on the feline overpopulation crisis. For the majority of cat owners, particularly those without specific breed requirements, adoption from a shelter or rescue organization is the recommendation that best serves both the individual cat and the broader cat population. Working with a responsible breeder is a legitimate choice for owners with specific, genuine requirements that responsible breeding can address. The operative word is responsible. Health testing, transparent socialization practices, willingness to show the breeding environment, appropriate waiting lists, and genuine commitment to the welfare of their cats and the integrity of their breed are the non-negotiable criteria that separate responsible breeders from the operations that should not receive anyone's business or money. Before contacting any breeder, search breed-specific rescues. Before purchasing any kitten online, visit in person. Before making any final decision, be honest with yourself about whether your reasons for wanting a specific breed are genuine requirements or preferences that a shelter cat could just as well satisfy. The cat at the end of either path deserves the same quality of care, the same depth of commitment, and the same love. The path matters. The destination matters more. Comparison 4. Grain-free versus grain-inclusive food. Few nutritional trends in the pet food industry have been adopted as quickly, as enthusiastically, and with as little critical examination as grain-free pet food. In the space of roughly a decade, grain-free went from a niche offering for pets with specific dietary sensitivities to the dominant marketing category in premium pet food, commanding shelf space, premium prices, and the loyal conviction of millions of pet owners who became absolutely certain that grains were harmful to their animals, and that removing them was one of the most important things they could do for their cat's health. The problem is that the grain-free movement was built on a marketing narrative that significantly outpaced the science. And in the years since grain-free food became dominant, research has emerged that complicates the story considerably, not just for dogs, where the concerns are more dramatic, but for cats as well. Understanding what the evidence actually shows, as opposed to what the marketing claims, is essential for making genuinely informed decisions about one of the most consequential daily choices in your cat's life. Let's start with the original argument for grain-free food, because it contains a real insight that is partially correct, even if the conclusions drawn from it went further than the evidence supported. Cats are obligate carnivores. We have established this multiple times in this video series, but it bears repeating here because it is the foundation of the grain-free argument. Obligate carnivores evolved eating prey. Prey does not contain grains. The digestive system of an obligate carnivore is optimized for processing animal protein and fat, not for digesting large amounts of starch and carbohydrate. Cats lack the salivary amylase that begins starch digestion in the mouth of omnivores. Their pancreatic amylase, which continues starch digestion, is present but at lower levels than in omnivores. Their capacity to regulate blood glucose in response to high carbohydrate meals is limited compared to animals whose evolutionary diet included significant carbohydrate sources. These biological facts are real. Cats are genuinely less well equipped to process large amounts of dietary carbohydrate than dogs or humans. The concern that high carbohydrate diets contribute to obesity and diabetes in cats is supported by evidence. And traditional cat foods, particularly dry kibble formulations, have historically used significant amounts of grain-based carbohydrates as inexpensive calorie sources and as the binding agents that allow dry kibble to maintain its shape. The criticism of high-carbohydrate cat food is not baseless. Where the grain-free movement went wrong was in conflating two separate issues. The concern about excessive dietary carbohydrates in cat food is legitimate. The conclusion that grains specifically are the problem and that removing grains while replacing them with other carbohydrate sources is the solution is not supported by the evidence. Grains are a source of carbohydrates in cat food, but grains are not the only source of carbohydrates in cat food, and removing grains does not automatically reduce carbohydrate content if the grains are replaced with other starch sources. This is the central marketing deception of grain-free pet food that most consumers never noticed. When grain-free formulations became popular, pet food manufacturers needed to replace the binding and caloric contribution of grains with something else. The something else they chose, in many cases, was legumes. Peas, lentils, chickpeas, and potatoes became the primary carbohydrate sources in grain-free formulations. These ingredients are not grains. They are grain-free by definition, but they are also significant sources of dietary carbohydrate, starch, and fiber that cats digest no better than they digest the grains that were removed. A grain-free cat food made primarily from peas and lentils is not a low-carbohydrate cat food. It is a cat food with different carbohydrate sources. The marketing implies that grain-free means carbohydrate-reduced or more species-appropriate. For many grain-free products, neither of these implications is accurate. The consumer who switched their cat to grain-free food, believing they were reducing dietary carbohydrate, may have simply changed which carbohydrates their cat is eating without meaningfully changing how much. Now let's talk about the specific concern that emerged from research into grain-free diets in dogs, because while the most dramatic findings involve dogs rather than cats, the implications are relevant to the broader grain-free question for all pet species. Beginning around 2018, the United States Food and Drug Administration began investigating a potential association between grain-free diets and dilated cardiomyopathy in dogs. Dilated cardiomyopathy is a serious cardiac condition involving weakening and enlargement of the heart muscle. The investigation was triggered by reports of DCM in dog breeds not typically predisposed to the condition, with a disproportionate representation of dogs eating grain-free diets high in legumes and potatoes among the affected cases. The investigation generated significant concern and significant media coverage. It also generated significant pushback from the pet food industry, from veterinary nutritionists with industry ties, and from grain-free advocates who felt the association was being overstated. Several years and considerable research later, the picture is genuinely complicated. A direct causal mechanism linking grain-free diets to DCM in dogs has not been definitively established. The FDA investigation remains open. Some researchers believe the association reflects a taurine deficiency issue related to specific ingredients rather than grain-free status per se. Others believe the association is real but multifactorial and not yet fully understood. What does this mean for cats? Cats are not dogs, and DCM in the feline. Grain-free context is a different question than DCM in dogs. Cats are obligate carnivores whose taurine requirements are well established and whose commercial food has been supplemented with taurine since the 1980s, following the discovery that taurine deficiency caused dilated cardiomyopathy in cats. Reputable commercial cat foods, including grain-free formulations, add taurine to their formulations regardless of the ingredient profile. The specific DCM concern from the dog research does not translate directly to cats in the same way. However, the broader lesson of the grain-free investigation is relevant to cats. It demonstrated that marketing-driven ingredient changes in pet food can have unintended health consequences that take years to become apparent. The rapid adoption of legume-heavy grain-free formulations across the pet food industry happened faster than the research that would establish their safety profile. The confidence with which grain-free was marketed as superior, before that superiority was demonstrated, was not justified by the evidence available at the time. The honest assessment of grain-free cat food in the current state of evidence is this: there is no demonstrated health benefit of grain-free food over high-quality, grain-inclusive food for cats without specific grain sensitivities or allergies. The theoretical argument that cats are better suited to grain-free diets has not been supported by clinical outcomes, showing that grain-free fed cats are healthier than appropriately fed grain-inclusive cats. The concern about dietary carbohydrates in cat food is legitimate, but is addressed more directly by choosing wet food over dry food or by choosing low-carbohydrate formulations regardless of whether they contain grains, rather than by choosing grain-free specifically. True grain allergies or sensitivities exist in cats, but are significantly less common than the grain-free marketing narrative implies. Food allergies in cats are real. The most common food allergens in cats are animal proteins, specifically beef, fish, chicken, and dairy, not grains. A cat with a genuine food allergy is more likely to be reacting to the protein source in their food than to the grain content. Switching to grain-free food without identifying the specific allergen does not reliably address food allergy symptoms and may simply introduce new potential allergens from the legume ingredients that replace the grains. If you suspect your cat has a food sensitivity or allergy, the appropriate diagnostic approach is an elimination diet trial conducted under veterinary guidance. where all potential allergens are removed and reintroduced systematically to identify the specific trigger. This process takes months and requires strict adherence, but it provides actual diagnostic information rather than the guesswork of simply switching food categories and hoping for improvement. What should you actually look for in a cat food if not grain-free status? The criteria we established in the first video remain the most reliable guide, named animal protein as the first ingredient, high overall protein percentage from animal sources, adequate moisture content, meaning wet food, as the primary diet for most cats, minimal plant-based protein sources that inflate the protein percentage on the label without providing the bioavailable animal protein cats need, a short, recognizable ingredient list without excessive fillers, artificial preservatives, or palatability enhancers that mask nutritional inadequacy. These criteria apply to grain-inclusive and grain-free foods equally. A grain-inclusive wet food made primarily from named animal proteins with minimal carbohydrate content is a better choice than a grain-free dry food with high legume content and low moisture. The grain-free label tells you very little about the actual nutritional quality of the food. The ingredient list and the guaranteed analysis tell you everything. The verdict: grain-free cat food is not inherently better than high-quality grain-inclusive cat food for most cats. The marketing narrative that positioned grain-free as more species-appropriate significantly outpaced the evidence, and the replacement of grains with legumes and potatoes in many grain-free formulations means that the carbohydrate reduction benefit that justified the switch in many consumers' minds was illusory. For cats with diagnosed grain sensitivities or allergies, grain-free food may be appropriate, but the diagnosis should be established through proper elimination diet trials, rather than assumed based on symptoms that could have multiple causes. For the majority of cats, the most important nutritional decisions are choosing wet food over dry, choosing high animal protein formulations over plant protein heavy ones, and choosing named protein sources over unnamed meat byproducts. Whether the food contains oats, rice, or barley matters significantly less than these foundational criteria, and spending premium prices on grain-free formulations that replace grains with equally starchy legumes does not improve your cat's health in any measurable way. Read the ingredient list. Ignore the marketing. Your cat's nutritional needs are defined by their biology, not by the trends that happen to be generating premium margins for pet food manufacturers this decade. Comparison 5. Homemade cat food versus commercial food. There is a moment that happens to a lot of devoted cat owners, usually after they have spent some time reading ingredient labels, researching pet food manufacturing, or watching a documentary about the commercial pet food industry, where they look at the can or bag in their hand and think, I could do better than this myself. The ingredients are things I recognize. The process seems straightforward. I know exactly what would go into food I made at home, and I would know with absolute certainty that there are no hidden additives, no questionable byproducts, no ingredients I can't pronounce. Homemade food feels like the purest possible expression of caring for your cat. It feels like control and transparency and love in a form you can measure and verify. This feeling is understandable. It comes from a genuinely good place, and it leads a significant number of cat owners to make a transition to homemade feeding that, in many cases, seriously compromises their cat's nutritional health without their knowledge or intention, sometimes for years before the consequences become apparent. This comparison is not designed to discourage homemade feeding. Done properly, homemade cat food can be excellent. It is designed to give you the complete, unvarnished picture of what properly done actually requires. Because the gap between what most people think homemade feeding involves and what it actually requires to be safe and complete is one of the most consequential knowledge gaps in cat nutrition. Let's start with what cats actually need from their food. Because understanding the full nutritional requirement is the foundation of understanding why homemade feeding is harder than it appears. Cats require over 40 distinct nutrients in specific amounts and ratios to maintain health. This is not a round number or an approximation. It is the documented nutritional profile of the obligate carnivore, established through decades of research into feline metabolism and health. These nutrients include specific amino acids, specific fatty acids, specific vitamins, specific minerals, and specific trace elements, all of which must be present in appropriate amounts relative to each other, because nutrients interact and the ratio between them matters as much as the absolute quantity of each. The most critical of these nutritional requirements deserve specific mention because they are the ones most commonly deficient in improperly formulated homemade diets. Taurine is an amino acid that cats cannot synthesize in adequate amounts from other amino acids. Unlike most mammals, they must consume it directly in their diet. Taurine deficiency causes dilated cardiomyopathy, the cardiac condition that weakens and enlarges the heart muscle, and retinal degeneration that leads to blindness. These are not theoretical risks. They are the conditions that killed cats in significant numbers before the taurine requirement was identified and before commercial cat food was reformulated to include adequate taurine supplementation in the 1980s. Taurine is present in raw meat, particularly heart muscle, but it is destroyed by cooking. A homemade cooked cat food that does not include taurine supplementation or very high amounts of raw heart is a recipe for taurine deficiency over time. Arachidonic acid is a fatty acid that cats cannot synthesize from linoleic acid the way dogs and humans can. They must consume it directly from animal sources, specifically from animal fat. A homemade diet that uses lean meat without appropriate fat inclusion, or that substitutes plant-based fats for animal fats, will be deficient in arachidonic acid, with consequences for skin health, immune function, and reproductive health. Vitamin A is another nutrient that cats cannot convert from beta-carotene the way omnivores can. They require preformed vitamin A from animal sources, specifically liver. A homemade diet that includes liver in appropriate amounts provides adequate vitamin A. A homemade diet without liver is likely deficient. But here is where the complexity deepens. Liver is extremely high in vitamin A, and vitamin A toxicity from excessive liver feeding is a real and documented problem in cats fed homemade diets where liver is used without careful quantity control. The margin between adequate and toxic vitamin A intake from liver is not enormous, and navigating it requires specific knowledge that most homemade feeding guides don't provide with sufficient precision. Calcium and phosphorus balance is the nutritional issue that causes the most serious structural damage in improperly formulated homemade diets. Muscle meat is very high in phosphorus and very low in calcium. A diet of muscle meat without bone or calcium supplementation creates a calcium to phosphorus ratio that is severely imbalanced, causing the body to draw calcium from bones to compensate. Over months, this causes nutritional secondary hyperparathyroidism, a condition where the bones progressively demineralize, becoming weak and fragile. Pathological fractures from minor trauma are the visible endpoint of this process, and they occur in cats fed meat-only homemade diets without calcium supplementation. This condition is preventable with correct formulation and devastating when formulation is incorrect. Iodine deficiency causes hypothyroidism. Zinc deficiency causes skin and coat problems and immune dysfunction. Vitamin E deficiency, which can occur in diets high in unsaturated fish-based fats without adequate antioxidant supplementation, causes a painful inflammatory condition called steatitis or yellow fat disease. Vitamin D, which cats must obtain from animal sources rather than synthesizing from sunlight exposure, is deficient in many homemade diets that don't include appropriate supplementation. This list is not exhaustive. It is illustrative of the complexity of feline nutritional requirements and of the number of ways a well-intentioned homemade diet can fail nutritionally without producing obvious symptoms until the deficiency has been progressing for months or years. The most important thing anyone considering homemade cat food needs to understand is this. You cannot formulate a complete and balanced homemade cat diet from a recipe you found online, a book you bought at a pet store, or your own intuitive sense of what seems healthy. The complexity of feline nutritional requirements, the interactions between nutrients, and the precision required in quantity calculations demand professional formulation by a board-certified veterinary nutritionist. A veterinary nutritionist is a veterinarian who has completed additional specialty training in animal nutrition and is board-certified by the American College of Veterinary Nutrition, or an equivalent body. They can formulate a homemade diet specifically for your cat, taking into account your cat's age, health status, any medical conditions, your available ingredients, and your cooking methods. The recipe they provide will specify exact quantities of each ingredient and exact supplements to be added, and it will be formulated to meet your cat's complete nutritional needs rather than to approximate them. The cost of a consultation with a veterinary nutritionist is real but modest relative to the veterinary costs of treating nutritional deficiency diseases that develop from improperly formulated homemade diets. Several veterinary nutrition consulting services also offer online consultations that make access to professional formulation more convenient than it was previously. The website Balance IT, developed by a veterinary nutritionist, provides recipe formulation tools that use their supplement products to balance homemade recipes, representing a more accessible path to properly formulated homemade feeding than traditional consultation alone, though veterinary review of any individual cat's specific situation remains valuable. Let's talk about the arguments in favor of homemade feeding, because they are real and they motivate people for legitimate reasons. Ingredient transparency is the most compelling argument. When you make your cat's food, you know exactly what went into it. You chose the protein source. You know where it came from. You know it is fresh. You know there are no artificial preservatives, no palatability enhancers, no unnamed byproducts, no ingredients you can't identify. For owners who have lost confidence in commercial pet food manufacturing, particularly following the various contamination scandals that have periodically affected the industry, this transparency has genuine value. Food quality control is related. The quality of protein sources in homemade food can be higher than in most commercial cat foods. Human-grade meat from known sources, fresh organs, properly handled fish, these ingredients represent a quality ceiling that is higher than what most commercial formulations use. The argument that you can provide higher quality raw materials than commercial manufacturers is often correct, and the potential benefit to your cat from those higher quality ingredients is real if the overall formulation is nutritionally complete. Palatability is another genuine advantage of homemade food for some cats. Cats with poor appetites, picky eaters, or cats recovering from illness sometimes eat homemade food more enthusiastically than commercial food, probably because fresh ingredients have more appealing aromas and textures than processed commercial products. For cats whose nutritional intake is compromised by poor appetite, a properly formulated homemade diet that the cat actually eats may be genuinely better than a nutritionally superior commercial food that the cat eats reluctantly. Medical diet management is an area where homemade feeding, under veterinary nutritionist guidance, can provide options that commercial prescription diets don't offer. Cats with multiple concurrent health conditions, cats with ingredient allergies that make finding appropriate commercial food difficult, and cats who refuse prescription diets may benefit from custom-formulated homemade diets that address their specific medical needs while providing palatability that commercial alternatives lack. Now let's be honest about the practical demands of homemade feeding, because even with proper formulation, the ongoing commitment is significant. Homemade cat food requires consistent sourcing of appropriate ingredients, regular preparation time, careful adherence to the formulation recipe. Without substitutions that change the nutritional balance, proper food safety practices that prevent bacterial contamination, appropriate storage, and regular veterinary monitoring to confirm that the diet is achieving its intended nutritional goals in the specific cat. Any change in ingredients, cooking methods, or supplement brands requires reassessment of the formulation because nutritional content varies between sources. This is not a set it and forget it dietary approach. It is an ongoing commitment that requires sustained attention and discipline. The supplement component of homemade feeding is where many well-intentioned owners stumble. A properly formulated homemade diet almost always requires several specific supplements to achieve completeness, and these supplements must be sourced carefully, measured precisely, and incorporated consistently. Using the wrong supplement, the wrong dose, or omitting supplements because they ran out and you haven't reordered yet creates the same nutritional gaps that the entire formulation process was designed to prevent. Supplement adherence is not optional. It is the mechanism through which nutritional completeness is achieved in a diet that would otherwise be deficient. The Verdict homemade cat food, formulated by a veterinary nutritionist, prepared with high-quality ingredients, supplemented precisely according to the formulation, and monitored regularly through veterinary assessment, is a legitimate and potentially excellent dietary option for cats. The transparency, ingredient quality, and palatability advantages are real, and for cats with specific medical needs or commercial food refusal, it may be the best available option. Homemade cat food formulated from online recipes, books, or intuition without professional nutritional guidance is genuinely dangerous. The nutritional requirements of cats are too specific, too numerous, and too precisely balanced for amateur formulation to reliably achieve. The consequences of nutritional deficiency develop slowly and silently, and by the time they are obvious, they have been progressing for months or years. If you want to feed homemade food, do it properly. Consult a veterinary nutritionist. Follow the recipe exactly. Source supplements reliably. Monitor your cat's health regularly. The investment in proper formulation is small relative to the investment in treating the consequences of improper formulation. High-quality commercial wet food, chosen based on ingredient quality and nutritional completeness, remains the most practical path to excellent feline nutrition for most cat owners. It is not a compromise. It is a genuinely good option that meets your cat's nutritional needs reliably, consistently, and without the ongoing demands that homemade feeding properly done requires. The goal is a healthy cat, not a particular feeding philosophy. Choose the path that leads most reliably to that goal, given your specific circumstances, knowledge, and capacity for sustained commitment. Comparison 6. Automatic feeder versus manual feeding. In the first video, we established clearly that scheduled feeding is strongly preferable to free feeding for the vast majority of cats. The benefits of controlled portions at predictable times, weight management, appetite monitoring, behavioral enrichment through puzzle feeding, and relationship building through mealtime ritual are substantial enough that the case for scheduled feeding over free feeding is essentially closed. But scheduled feeding raises a practical question that many busy cat owners face immediately. What happens when I'm not home at mealtime? What happens when I work long hours, travel for work, or simply have a schedule that doesn't align reliably with a cat's feeding times? The answer that more and more cat owners are turning to is the automatic feeder. And the question of whether an automatic feeder is an adequate substitute for manual feeding, or whether it represents a meaningful compromise in the quality of care, deserves honest examination. This comparison is not about whether automatic feeders work. They do. It is about what they provide, what they cannot provide, and how to think about integrating them into a feeding approach that serves your cat's health and your relationship with them as well as possible, given the realities of your life. Let's start with what automatic feeders actually do well, because the practical case for them is genuinely strong. Portion control is the primary functional advantage of a quality automatic feeder. A well-designed automatic feeder dispenses a precisely measured portion at a preset time, consistently, regardless of whether you are home, awake, or remembering to feed the cat. For cat owners who struggle with the guilt-driven tendency to add a little extra when their cat gives them the look, the automatic feeder's mechanical indifference to feline persuasion is a genuine benefit. The portion is the portion, every time, without negotiation. Schedule consistency is equally important and equally well served by automatic feeders. Cats thrive on routine. Their entire behavioral and physiological day is organized around predictable patterns, and feeding time is one of the most significant anchors in that pattern. A cat who is fed at 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. every day develops a reliable biological rhythm around those times, anticipating meals, preparing digestively, and experiencing the satisfaction of a predictable schedule that their nervous system finds genuinely stabilizing. Manual feeding achieves this consistency when the owner's schedule is reliable, but most people's schedules are not perfectly reliable. Work runs late, social commitments arise, travel happens. The automatic feeder delivers consistency that human schedules frequently cannot. For multi-cat households where individual cats need different portion sizes or different foods, programmable feeders that can be linked to specific microchips or RFID collar tags are a genuinely valuable tool. These feeders open only for the specific cat whose chip matches the feeder's programming, preventing the food competition and dietary contamination that occurs when cats with different nutritional needs share an unsupervised feeding space. A diabetic cat who needs a specific prescription diet can be fed separately from a healthy housemate without requiring constant owner supervision at every meal. The stress reduction benefit of automatic feeders for cats with food anxiety is worth mentioning. Some cats develop significant anticipatory anxiety around feeding time, particularly if feeding times have been inconsistent or if they have experienced food scarcity. These cats may become progressively anxious and vocal in the hour or two before feeding, developing a stress response around the feeding event itself that is counterproductive to the calm, satisfied post-meal state that feeding is supposed to produce. For these cats, the mechanical predictability of an automatic feeder, which delivers food at exactly the same time every day without the variability that human behavior introduces, can reduce anticipatory anxiety by making the feeding event completely reliable. For owners who travel, the automatic feeder is a tool that makes responsible cat ownership more compatible with modern life demands. A high-quality automatic feeder with sufficient capacity, combined with appropriate water provision and litter box management, can maintain a cat's feeding schedule reliably for short absences without requiring a pet sitter for every meal. This is not an argument for leaving cats unattended for extended periods. Human contact, play, and monitoring remain essential regardless of feeding automation. But the ability to maintain feeding consistency during brief absences without disrupting the cat's schedule is a meaningful practical advantage. Now let's talk about what automatic feeders cannot do, because this is where the comparison becomes more nuanced and where the risk of over-relying on automation becomes apparent. Appetite monitoring is the most significant thing that automatic feeders cannot provide. When you feed your cat manually, you are present at the feeding event. You see whether your cat comes to eat with their usual enthusiasm. You notice if the bowl is not being finished when it is usually cleaned. You observe whether the cat seems interested in food at all. These observations, made twice daily at every feeding, constitute an ongoing informal health assessment that catches changes in appetite early, before they have progressed to a point where other symptoms are obvious. An automatic feeder that dispenses food into a bowl does not tell you whether the cat ate it. Some higher-end models include cameras or weight sensors that can tell you whether the bowl has been emptied, but the information they provide is much cruder than the direct observation of a manual feeding. A cat who ate their entire morning meal but left their evening meal untouched may be developing a health issue. A cat who is eating but eating more slowly and less enthusiastically than usual may be experiencing mouth pain. These subtle changes are visible to an attentive owner who is present at feeding time. They are invisible to an automatic feeder. The relationship dimension of feeding is the other significant thing that automation cannot replicate. We discussed this in the scheduled feeding comparison in the first video, but it deserves elaboration here. The ritual of preparing and delivering your cat's food is one of the most consistent and most reliable interaction events in your shared daily life. Your cat anticipates it. They engage with you around it. They experience your presence as the source of something they genuinely want. This creates a daily reinforcement of the bond between you that accumulates over years into one of the foundations of your relationship, an automatic feeder that delivers food without your involvement removes you from this equation. The cat still gets fed. They do not experience you as the agent of their feeding, and the relationship reinforcement that manual feeding provides does not occur. This matters more for some cats than others. Cats who receive abundant human interaction through play, grooming, conversation, and physical contact throughout the day may not experience the removal of the feeding relationship as a significant loss. Cats whose primary daily interaction with their owner is organized around feeding time, which describes many cats in households where owners work long hours, may find the transition to fully automated feeding more isolating than owners realize. Wet food presents specific challenges for automatic feeders that dry food does not. Wet food spoils at room temperature within a few hours, which means a standard automatic feeder that simply dispenses food and leaves it sitting is not appropriate for wet food. Portions. Automatic feeders designed for wet food exist and use either ice packs or refrigerated compartments to keep food fresh until dispensing, or multiple sealed compartments that open sequentially at preset times. These models are more expensive, more complex to maintain, and less universally reliable than dry food feeders. For owners committed to wet food as the primary diet, the automatic feeder options are functional, but require more investment and more careful selection than the dry food equivalent. Mechanical failure is a reality of all automatic feeders, and the consequences of a mechanical failure in a feeding device are more serious than the consequences of most household equipment failures. A feeder that jams and fails to dispense food leaves a cat without a meal. A feeder that malfunctions and dispenses continuously delivers an excessive amount of food. A feeder whose battery fails overnight dispenses nothing until the battery is replaced. These failure modes require backup plans. A neighbor or friend with a key who can check on the cat and provide manual feeding if the feeder fails. A visible indicator of the feeder's last successful operation. Redundant battery backup in the feeder itself. Cat owners who rely on automatic feeders need to think through failure scenarios and have contingency plans in place. The quality of automatic feeders varies enormously, from inexpensive basic models with limited programming options and mechanical inconsistency to sophisticated devices with app connectivity, cameras, portion weight measurement, and multiple redundant systems. The investment in a higher quality feeder is justified by the reliability difference, particularly for cats whose feeding schedule is being managed primarily through automation. A feeder that sometimes dispenses the wrong portion, sometimes fails to dispense at all, or that the cat can manipulate to dispense extra food defeats every purpose that automatic feeding is meant to serve. Let's talk about the hybrid approach that most thoughtfully addresses the advantages and limitations of both automatic and manual feeding. The most effective approach for most cat owners is not fully automatic feeding or fully manual feeding, but a deliberate integration of both that maximizes the advantages of each while minimizing their respective limitations. Morning feeding, which is the meal most commonly disrupted by the demands of human schedules, is an excellent candidate for automation. A feeder programmed to deliver the morning portion at a consistent time every day ensures that the cat receives their breakfast at the same time, regardless of whether you slept through your alarm, left early for a meeting, or are recovering from a late night. The consistency benefit of automation is at its highest value for the meal most subject to schedule disruption. Evening feeding, when most owners are home and available, is the ideal candidate for manual delivery. The evening feeding becomes the daily relationship event, the time when you are present, attentive, and engaged with your cat around something they care about. You observe their appetite. You notice if something seems off. You reinforce the bond through your presence at the moment of reward. The automatic feeder handles the logistical challenge of the morning meal. The manual feeding handles the relationship and monitoring functions that automation cannot. This hybrid approach is not a compromise between good and less good options. It is the approach that best serves all of the goals of scheduled feeding simultaneously: consistency, portion control, appetite monitoring, and relationship reinforcement. The Verdict automatic feeders are valuable tools that solve real practical problems for busy cat owners, and their role in maintaining schedule consistency and portion control deserves genuine appreciation rather than dismissal as a lazy alternative to manual feeding for the morning meal for multi-cat. Households with individual dietary needs and for managing brief owner absences, a quality automatic feeder is one of the most worthwhile investments in cat care available. Automatic feeders cannot replace the appetite monitoring and relationship reinforcement that manual feeding provides. Fully automating both daily meals removes the owner from the feeding relationship in ways that have real consequences for both health monitoring and the quality of the cat-human bond. The optimal approach for most cat owners combines automatic feeding for the meal, most subject to schedule disruption, with manual feeding for at least one meal per day, where the owner is present, attentive, and engaged. This combination delivers consistency and convenience through automation, while preserving the monitoring and relationship functions that only human presence at feeding time can provide. Feed your cat on schedule. Use automation where it genuinely helps you maintain that schedule. Stay present for at least one meal every day. Your cat's health and your relationship with them will both be better for it. Comparison 7. Catio versus Leash. Training. In the first video, we established that outdoor access in the traditional sense, a cat roaming freely and unsupervised, is a genuine and serious risk that shortens lives and exposes cats to threats their owners often never see coming. But we also acknowledge something equally important, that the instinct to dismiss the outdoor argument entirely, to say indoor is always better and the discussion is closed, misses a real dimension of feline well-being. Cats evolved outdoors. They have sensory systems tuned to outdoor stimuli. They have instincts that an indoor environment, no matter how well enriched, satisfies only partially. The sound of wind, the smell of rain, the texture of real grass, the warmth of direct sunlight unfiltered by glass, the movement of real insects and birds at close range. These experiences engage cats in ways that indoor equivalents approximate but never fully replicate. The question is not whether cats benefit from outdoor experience. They do. The question is how to provide that experience in a form that delivers the benefits without the risks. And there are two primary answers to that question that cat owners are increasingly discovering and debating. The Catio, an enclosed outdoor structure that brings the outdoors to the cat safely, and leash training, which brings the cat to the outdoors under direct supervision. This comparison examines both options honestly, including what each provides, what each requires, and which is better suited to different cats and different owners. Let's start with Catios, because they represent the more passive of the two options, and the one that is accessible to a wider range of cats regardless of temperament. A Catio, the portmanteau of cat and patio, is an enclosed outdoor space designed specifically for cats. The range of Catio designs is enormous. At the simplest end, a window box Catio is a small enclosure attached to a window, essentially a cage that protrudes from the window opening, allowing a cat to sit outside in fresh air while remaining completely enclosed and protected. At the most elaborate end, large freestanding catio structures in gardens or yards provide hundreds of square feet of enclosed outdoor space with climbing structures, resting platforms, tunnels, and plant features, connected to the house through a cat door or tunnel. Between these extremes, there are deck catios, porch catios, attached lean-to structures, and modular panel systems that can be configured in many ways to suit different spaces and budgets. What all catios share is the core value proposition. The cat is outside. They are breathing outdoor air. They are smelling the outdoor environment in its full complexity: the soil, the plants, the insects, the weather, the other animals that pass nearby. They are experiencing direct sunlight and natural temperature variation. They are seeing birds and squirrels and insects at close range rather than through glass. They are hearing the sounds of the outdoor world without attenuation. All of this is happening while they are completely protected from every threat that makes outdoor access dangerous. No cars, no predators, no toxic plants they can ingest, no contact with other cats who might carry disease, no possibility of getting lost. The catio solves the outdoor dilemma as completely as any solution available. The independence of the catio experience is one of its most significant advantages. Once a catio is installed and a cat is comfortable using it, the outdoor experience is available to the cat on their own terms, at their own pace, for as long as they choose, without requiring any human coordination or participation. The cat who wants to spend 3 hours sitting in the sun watching the neighbor's bird feeder can do exactly that without any input from their owner beyond the initial installation decision. This independence is valuable both for the cat's autonomy and for the owner's convenience. Catios are accessible to virtually every cat, regardless of temperament. Anxious cats who would be overwhelmed by the uncontrolled stimulation of a leash walk, cats who would never accept a harness, senior cats who cannot walk long distances, and cats with health conditions that limit their physical activity can all benefit from a catio in ways that leash training cannot provide. The catio does not require anything from the cat beyond the willingness to step outside, and most cats discover the catio's appeal within days of introduction. The disadvantages of catios are primarily practical and financial. Construction or purchase of a quality catio represents a meaningful investment. The simplest window box catios are relatively affordable, but structures large enough to provide genuine enrichment value cost more, and custom-built structures can be significant. Investments. Rental situations, apartment dwellers, and people without outdoor space may find catios difficult or impossible to implement in their specific living situation. Homeowner association rules or landlord restrictions can prevent catio installation even when outdoor space is available. Maintenance is an ongoing consideration. Catios need to be inspected regularly for structural integrity, particularly the mesh or wire that forms the enclosure, which can degrade over time and develop gaps that compromise the security of the structure. Accumulated debris, bird droppings, and plant growth within catios need regular attention. In climates with significant weather variation, catios may need seasonal modifications to remain comfortable and safe year-round. Now let's talk about leash training, because it offers something that even the best catio cannot fully replicate. Leash walking with a cat provides genuine environmental variety that a static catio cannot match. A cat who is walked on a leash experiences different locations, different smells, different sights, and different stimuli with each walk. The novelty of different environments engages a cat's exploratory and investigative instincts in ways that the familiar, static environment of even a well-designed catio does not. The mental stimulation of new territory, the olfactory richness of a different section of sidewalk or a different section of park, the physical experience of walking on different surfaces and investigating new objects provides a quality of environmental engagement that is genuinely different from and complementary to what a catio offers. The social dimension of leash walking is also unique. A cat who walks with their owner in shared exploration of the outdoor environment is engaging in a social activity with their human companion in a context that is entirely different from indoor interaction. The shared experience of outdoor exploration, the cat leading towards something interesting, the owner following and facilitating, the mutual attention to the same environmental stimuli creates a specific type of bond-building interaction that has no indoor equivalent. Many cat owners who have successfully trained their cats to walk on leash describe it as one of the most rewarding aspects of their relationship. The physical exercise component of leash walking exceeds what most catios provide. A cat who walks is covering ground, navigating terrain, using their full body in ways that sitting or climbing in a catio does not require. For cats who are overweight or who have insufficient exercise opportunities, regular leash walks provide meaningful physical activity that contributes to weight management and cardiovascular health. The limitations of leash training are equally real and must be honestly assessed. Not every cat will accept a harness or tolerate the leash walking experience. The acceptance of a harness requires gradual patient desensitization that some cats never fully achieve regardless of how carefully it is approached. Cats who are highly anxious, who have significant fear responses to outdoor stimuli, or who are simply constitutionally unwilling to be restrained, may find the harness and leash experience stressful rather than enriching. And forcing a visibly distressed cat to continue a leash walk is neither humane nor productive. The initial training process requires significant patience and time. Harness introduction should begin indoors, leaving the harness near the cat so they can investigate it at their own pace before it is placed on them. The first wearing sessions should be brief, positive, and reward-heavy. Transition to outdoor exposure should be gradual, beginning in a secure, quiet outdoor space before progressing to more stimulating environments. The full process from harness introduction to comfortable outdoor walking takes weeks to months for most cats, and some cats who seem to accept the harness indoors become overwhelmed by outdoor stimulation and need the process slowed or restarted. Safety during leash walks requires ongoing vigilance that the catio does not. An escaped cat, a leash or harness that breaks or slips, an encounter with an off-leash dog or another aggressive animal, and the disorientation that a frightened cat in an unfamiliar outdoor environment experiences are all risks that require the owner's active management. Leash walking is a supervised activity where the owner's attention and judgment are constantly required, unlike the catio, which can function without active owner participation. The harness choice matters significantly for both comfort and security. Cat harnesses fall into two main categories: H-style harnesses, which have separate neck and body loops connected by a back strap, and vest-style harnesses, which distribute pressure across a broader area of the chest and back. Vest-style harnesses are generally considered more secure and more comfortable for cats, as they are harder to back out of and distribute the sensation of restraint more evenly. The fit must be snug enough that the cat cannot back out, but not so tight as to restrict breathing or movement. Collar-only leash attachment is never appropriate for cats because the force of restraint is concentrated on the neck, where it can cause serious injury. For cats who live in apartments or rentals where catio installation is not possible, leash training may be the only available option for providing outdoor experience. For these cats, the investment in patient harness training is particularly worthwhile because the outdoor enrichment it provides has no indoor substitute. The combination of both options, a catio for independent daily outdoor access and leash walks for the variety and exercise that a static catio cannot provide, is genuinely the best approach for cats who accept both, and for owners who have the resources and space for a catio, plus the time for regular walks. Each provides something the other cannot, and together they address the full range of outdoor enrichment needs more completely than either alone. The verdict: For cats who will accept it and owners who have the outdoor space, a Catio is the gold standard of safe outdoor enrichment. It provides independent outdoor access, requires no ongoing human coordination, is accessible to cats of all temperaments and physical conditions, and delivers the sensory richness of the outdoor environment on the cat's own terms and timeline. Leash training provides environmental variety, physical exercise, and a unique form of shared human-cat social activity that Catios cannot replicate. It is the best available option for cats in living situations where Catios are not feasible, and it is a valuable complement to Catio access for cats who accept both. The right choice depends on your living situation, your cat's temperament, and your capacity for the different types of investment each requires. A Catio requires financial and construction investment up front, but minimal ongoing time investment. Leash training requires time investment in the training process and in regular walks, but minimal financial investment beyond a quality harness. Neither option is objectively superior. Both are dramatically better than unsupervised outdoor access, and either one provides outdoor enrichment that meaningfully improves the quality of an indoor cat's life. If your cat currently has no outdoor access at all, either option represents a significant improvement worth pursuing. Start with whichever is more accessible to you given your specific situation, and consider whether the other might eventually become possible as well. Your cat's sensory systems evolved outdoors, giving them some form of safe outdoor experience in whatever form your circumstances allow is one of the most enriching gifts you can provide. Comparison 8. Hard carrier versus soft carrier. Of all the comparisons in this video, this is the one that affects your cat's life least on a daily basis and most in the specific moments when it matters. The carrier sits in a closet or under a bed for most of the year, invisible and irrelevant to your cat's day-to-day experience. And then the veterinary visit arrives, or the emergency happens, or the move is required, and suddenly the carrier becomes the most important piece of equipment you own. How your cat experiences that carrier, whether they enter it with minimal stress or fight it with every resource available to them, whether they travel in it safely or in terror, whether it protects them or fails them in a critical moment, depends on decisions you made about carrier choice and carrier training that most people never think through carefully. This comparison is going to give you the complete picture of hard versus soft carriers, the situations where each performs best, the safety and comfort considerations that most owners never consider, and the one thing about carrier choice that matters more than any specific design feature, and that completely transforms your cat's relationship with whatever carrier you choose. Let's start with hard carriers, because they have been the standard for decades, and their advantages are real and significant. Hard carriers, also called hard-sided carriers or plastic carriers, are typically constructed from rigid plastic with a metal wire door, ventilation gaps on the sides, and a handle for carrying. The most common design separates into two halves, a top and a bottom, that can be disassembled. This separability is one of the most practically important features of a hard carrier, and it is the feature that most directly affects your cat's veterinary experience in ways that matter enormously. When a cat is inside a hard carrier and is extremely anxious or resistant to being removed, the veterinarian's options for examination are limited if the only opening is the front door. Removing a fractious, terrified cat through a narrow door opening is stressful for the cat, stressful for the veterinary staff, and creates conditions that make accurate examination difficult. A hard carrier that can be separated at the middle allows the veterinarian to simply remove the top half of the carrier and examine the cat while they remain in the bottom half on their familiar bedding. The cat does not need to be extracted. They are simply uncovered. This technique, called the top-off examination, dramatically reduces the stress of veterinary visits for anxious cats and is considered best practice by feline veterinary specialists. The structural rigidity of hard carriers provides genuine protection in situations where protection matters. In a car accident or a sudden hard stop, a hard carrier maintains its shape and protects the cat inside from being compressed or impacted by the forces involved. A soft carrier in the same situation may deform, compress, or fail to protect the cat adequately. For car travel, where accident risk is always present regardless of how carefully you drive, the structural integrity of a hard carrier is a real safety advantage. Hard carriers are also easier to clean and disinfect than soft carriers. The rigid plastic surfaces can be wiped down, sprayed with appropriate disinfectants, and dried completely without the material absorbing odors or harboring bacteria in fabric fibers. For cats who are ill or who vomit during travel, the cleanability of a hard carrier is a practical advantage that owners discover quickly and appreciate immediately. The disadvantages of hard carriers are primarily related to size, weight, and convenience. Hard carriers tend to be bulkier and heavier than soft carriers of equivalent internal volume. They do not compress for storage when not in use, taking up a consistent footprint in whatever space they are kept. They are not airline cabin approved in most cases, limiting their utility for air travel. The rigid structure that provides protection and structural integrity also limits the carrier's adaptability to different spaces, vehicle configurations, and storage situations. Now let's talk about soft carriers, because they have become increasingly popular and their advantages are equally real. Soft carriers constructed from fabric panels over a collapsible frame with mesh ventilation panels and zippered openings offer a different set of advantages that appeal strongly to many cat owners and that serve specific situations particularly well. Airline cabin approval is the most situation-specific advantage of soft carriers. Airlines that permit pets in the cabin require carriers that fit under the seat in front of the passenger, and the flexible construction of soft carriers allows them to compress slightly to fit the available space in ways that rigid hard carriers cannot. For cats who travel by air, a soft carrier is essentially mandatory for cabin transport, and the alternatives, checked baggage in the cargo hold or leaving the cat at home, are significantly less desirable for most owners and cats. The comfort of soft carriers during extended travel is perceived as superior by many owners, partly because the flexible walls feel less confining and partly because the fabric construction feels softer and more den-like to some cats. Whether cats genuinely prefer the interior of soft carriers to hard carriers is individual, and the research does not clearly favor one over the other on comfort grounds. What soft carriers do offer is a less institutional appearance that may carry less negative association for cats who have learned to associate carrier sightings with veterinary visits. The collapsibility of soft carriers is a practical advantage for owners with limited storage space. A soft carrier that folds flat when not in use takes up a fraction of the space of a hard carrier, making it more practical for apartment dwellers and others for whom storage space is limited. Multiple access points are a design feature that better soft carriers implement more readily than most hard carriers. A soft carrier with openings at the front, the top, and one or both sides provides the veterinarian with more options for examination and treatment than a hard carrier with only a front door, partially compensating for the loss of the top-off examination technique. When choosing a soft carrier, the number and configuration of access points is one of the most important design features to evaluate. The disadvantages of soft carriers include the structural vulnerability we discussed in the accident scenario, the cleaning challenge of fabric construction, and the susceptibility to damage from a stressed cat's claws. A cat who is highly distressed during travel can tear through the mesh panels or work at zipper closures in ways that compromise the security of a soft carrier, and that would not be possible with a hard carrier's rigid construction. For cats who have a history of attempting to escape from carriers during transport, the structural security of a hard carrier is a meaningful safety consideration. The ventilation comparison between hard and soft carriers is more nuanced than it initially appears. Hard carriers rely on the gaps around the door and ventilation slots in the sides and top for airflow. Soft carriers use mesh panels that typically provide more total ventilation area. In hot weather or in situations where the cat is stressed and generating additional body heat, the superior ventilation of mesh-sided soft carriers can be a genuine comfort advantage. In cold weather, the mesh panels of soft carriers may allow too much cold air circulation, making the interior uncomfortably cold for the cat. Covering portions of the mesh with a blanket or towel addresses this, but reduces the visibility that contributes to the carrier's airflow advantage. Let's talk about carrier training, because this is the factor that overrides every design consideration we have discussed, and that determines your cat's actual experience of whatever carrier you choose more completely than any structural or material feature. A cat who has been trained to view their carrier as a safe, comfortable, familiar space will enter it voluntarily, travel in it with minimal stress, and arrive at their destination in a significantly better physiological and emotional state than a cat who experiences the carrier as a threat to be avoided and escaped. The research on carrier-trained cats at veterinary visits consistently shows lower stress hormone levels, more tractable behavior during examination, and faster physiological recovery after the visit compared to cats who arrive having fought their way into the carrier and spent the journey in high-stress arousal. The carrier training process works through gradual positive association. The carrier lives in the home permanently, not in a closet that the cat never sees until travel day. It sits in a location the cat frequents, with comfortable bedding inside, and sometimes with treats placed inside to encourage voluntary entry. The cat investigates it at their own pace, enters it voluntarily when motivated by treats or curiosity, and over time comes to associate the carrier with positive experiences rather than with being caught, confined, and transported to a stressful location. This process works with both hard and soft carriers. The design of the carrier affects specific aspects of the experience: the ease of veterinary examination, the safety in transport, the ventilation comfort during travel. The training determines the foundational emotional relationship your cat has with the carrier, which shapes their experience of every aspect of the carrier interaction, from approach to entry to transport to arrival. A poorly trained cat in a well-designed hard carrier and a poorly trained cat in a well-designed soft carrier are both distressed cats being forced into confinement they experience as threatening. Well-trained cat in either type of carrier is a cat who enters voluntarily, settles in familiar bedding, and travels with a stress level that is as low as the carrier environment allows. Invest in the training before you invest heavily in the carrier design. A modest carrier that the cat enters voluntarily is better than an expensive carrier that the cat fights every time. The verdict: hard carriers are the stronger choice for routine veterinary visits, car travel, and any situation where structural protection, easy cleaning, and the top-off examination technique are priorities. The physical safety advantage in car travel and the veterinary handling advantage of the separable design make hard carriers the recommendation for most standard cat transport situations. Soft carriers are the necessary choice for air cabin travel and the preferable choice for situations where storage space, weight, and collapsibility are primary considerations for cats who respond well to the den-like quality of fabric construction and who travel by air. A quality soft carrier with multiple access points is appropriate. The best practical approach for most cat owners is to own both: hard carrier as the primary transport vessel for veterinary visits and car travel, and a soft carrier for air travel or situations where the hard carrier's bulk and weight are prohibitive. The investment in both is modest relative to the years of use they provide, and regardless of which carrier you choose, train your cat to accept it. Leave it out permanently. Put treats and familiar bedding inside. Let the cat discover that the carrier is not a trap, but a familiar, comfortable space that happens to sometimes take them places. That training, more than any design feature of any carrier, is what determines whether your cat's transport experiences are tolerable or traumatic. It costs nothing but time and patience, and the return on that investment is measured in years of calmer, healthier veterinary visits and a cat who does not disappear under the bed every time you approach the closet where the carrier lives. Comparison 9. Chemical flea prevention versus natural alternatives. Few topics in cat care generate more passionate disagreement between conventional veterinary medicine and the natural pet care community than flea prevention. On one side, veterinarians and parasitologists who recommend pharmaceutical flea prevention products with consistent, evidence-based efficacy and known safety profiles. On the other side, natural pet care advocates who argue that chemical flea treatments are toxic, that the pharmaceutical industry has overstated the flea threat and understated the risks of their products, and that natural alternatives can protect cats effectively without exposing them to synthetic chemicals. Both sides are speaking with more certainty than the evidence fully supports, and both sides are missing important nuances that a cat owner making this decision deserves to understand completely. This comparison is going to be particularly careful about one aspect of flea prevention that most discussions completely ignore. Cats are not dogs. This seems obvious, but it has life and death implications in the flea prevention context that many cat owners, and tragically some pet product retailers, do not fully appreciate. Several ingredients that are safe for dogs are acutely toxic to cats. The consequences of applying the wrong product to a cat, including products marketed for pets without adequate species-specific labeling, can be severe and can occur within hours of exposure. Understanding which ingredients are safe for cats and which are not is not optional knowledge for cat owners. It is essential safety information. Let's start with the flea threat itself, because understanding what you are actually preventing puts the prevention options in appropriate context. Fleas are not merely a discomfort issue. They are a genuine health threat to cats in ways that go beyond the itching and scratching that most owners think of first. Tenocephalides felis, the cat flea, is the most common flea species affecting domestic cats and dogs worldwide. A single adult female flea can consume 15 times her body weight in blood daily and can lay up to 50 eggs per day. This reproductive capacity means that a flea infestation, once established, escalates rapidly. The fleas visible on your cat represent approximately 5% of the total flea population in your home at any given time. The other 95% are eggs, larvae, and pupae, distributed throughout your carpets, furniture, and bedding, cycling through their developmental stages and emerging as new adults continuously for weeks to months. Flea allergy dermatitis is the most common skin condition in cats, and it is caused by an allergic reaction to flea saliva rather than by the flea bites themselves. A single flea bite in a sensitized cat triggers an immune response that causes intense itching, hair loss, and skin inflammation that can persist long after the flea itself is gone. Cats with flea allergy dermatitis can cause serious skin damage through their scratching and grooming response, and the condition is genuinely miserable for affected animals. Tapeworms of the species Dipylidium caninum are transmitted through the ingestion of flea larvae, which serve as intermediate hosts. A cat who grooms and inadvertently swallows an infected flea will develop a tapeworm infection. Tapeworm segments, which look like small grains of rice in the feces or around the anal area, are the most visible sign of this infection. Treatment requires specific tapeworm medication and flea control simultaneously to prevent reinfection. Bartonella henselae, the bacterium responsible for cat scratch disease in humans, is transmitted between cats by fleas. Cats infected with Bartonella may be asymptomatic themselves, but can transmit the infection to humans through scratches or bites. In immunocompromised humans, cat scratch disease can be serious. Flea control reduces Bartonella transmission risk, Severe flea infestations in kittens, small cats, or debilitated cats can cause significant blood loss, leading to anemia. Young kittens with heavy flea burdens can become dangerously anemic in a short period, and flea-related anemia has caused deaths in very young or very small cats. Now let's talk about conventional pharmaceutical flea prevention, beginning with the safety consideration that is most critical for cat owners. The most important safety fact in this entire comparison is that permethrin, a synthetic pyrethroid insecticide widely used in dog flea prevention products, is acutely toxic to cats and can be fatal. Permethrin is safe for dogs at concentrations used in topical spot-on products and flea collars. In cats, permethrin causes a severe neurological reaction characterized by muscle tremors, seizures, hyperthermia, and death if not treated immediately. Permethrin toxicity in cats occurs when cat-specific products are misapplied, when dog products are accidentally applied to cats, or when cats groom or contact dogs who have recently been treated with permethrin-containing products. This is not a theoretical risk. Permethrin toxicity is one of the most common toxicological emergencies in cats seen by veterinary practices, and a significant proportion of cases involve cats whose owners either applied a dog product in error or did not realize that a cat sharing a household with a recently treated dog could be exposed through contact. If you have both cats and dogs in your household, the flea products used on the dog must be checked carefully for permethrin content, and treated dogs should be kept away from cats until the product has dried completely and the risk of contact transfer has passed. Organophosphate insecticides, used in some older flea collar and spray formulations, are also toxic to cats and should be avoided, entirely in feline flea prevention. With these critical safety exclusions established, let's look at the pharmaceutical flea prevention options that are specifically formulated and tested for cats, and that have established safety and efficacy profiles. Wesoxazoline class products, including Fluralaner and Seralaner, represent the newest generation of flea prevention chemistry. These products work by blocking specific chloride channels in the nervous system of fleas and ticks, causing paralysis and death. They are highly effective, with efficacy rates above 95% against fleas, and they provide sustained activity following a single dose. Oral formulations for cats are available and provide the advantage of eliminating the topical application step and the associated concerns about application site reactions or residue contact by humans or other pets. Spinosad, a naturally derived insecticide from soil bacteria, is available in oral formulations for cats and provides effective flea control through a mechanism similar to isoxazolines. Its natural derivation makes it appealing to owners seeking alternatives to fully synthetic chemistry while still wanting pharmaceutical-grade efficacy. Imidacloprid and selamectin are established active ingredients in topical, spot-on flea prevention products specifically formulated for cats. These products have long safety records in cats when used as directed and provide reliable monthly flea prevention. Selamectin products additionally provide heartworm prevention and coverage against certain intestinal parasites, making them a multi-parasite option for cats with outdoor access or in heartworm endemic areas. The efficacy advantage of pharmaceutical flea prevention is its most important characteristic. These products are tested in controlled studies against specific flea species at specific life cycle stages and achieve documented kill rates that provide genuine protection. When a pharmaceutical flea prevention product claims 98% efficacy against adult fleas within 24 hours of application, that claim is based on study data that was submitted to and reviewed by regulatory agencies before the product was approved. The efficacy is not theoretical or anecdotal. It is measured. Now let's talk about natural flea prevention alternatives, because the appeal of avoiding synthetic chemistry in a product applied to or ingested by your cat is understandable and deserves honest evaluation rather than dismissal. Essential oil-based flea repellents are the most commonly recommended natural alternative, and they require the most careful safety evaluation in the cat context. Many essential oils that are broadly considered safe for humans and that are used in natural flea prevention products are toxic to cats. Tea tree oil, eucalyptus oil, pennyroyal oil, clove oil, and many others cause toxicity in cats through mechanisms related to cats' limited ability to metabolize certain compounds through glucuronidation, a liver detoxification pathway that cats lack compared to most mammals. Products containing these ingredients should never be used on or near cats, regardless of their natural origin. The essential oils that are considered relatively safer for cats, including certain diluted concentrations of lavender and cedarwood, have some evidence of flea repellent activity in laboratory settings, but significantly weaker evidence of real-world flea prevention efficacy than pharmaceutical products. The key distinction is between repellent activity, meaning fleas are less attracted to a treated animal, and killing activity, meaning fleas that contact the treated animal die. Repellent activity reduces flea acquisition but does not eliminate it, and does nothing to address the established flea population in the environment. Killing activity, which pharmaceutical products provide, reduces the flea population by eliminating adults before they can reproduce. Diatomaceous earth, a powder made from the fossilized remains of microscopic aquatic organisms, kills fleas through physical rather than chemical action by damaging their exoskeletons and causing dehydration. It is effective against fleas in the environment when applied to carpets, bedding, and other surfaces where flea larvae develop. Its direct application to cats is more problematic because the fine powder can be inhaled and can cause respiratory irritation. Food-grade diatomaceous earth is considered safer than industrial grades, but respiratory caution is warranted with any application near cats. Regular vacuuming, washing bedding at high temperatures, and treating the indoor environment are components of flea management that reduce the environmental flea burden regardless of what prevention method is used on the cat. These environmental measures are important complements to any flea prevention approach and are particularly important when natural prevention methods, with limited killing efficacy, are used because the environmental flea population represents the ongoing reinfestation source. Flea combs provide mechanical removal of adult fleas and flea dirt from the coat. They are useful as a monitoring tool and as a supplement to other prevention methods, but are entirely inadequate as a standalone flea prevention approach because they address only the adult fleas on the cat's body without affecting eggs, larvae, pupae, or the environmental population. Nutritional supplements including brewer's yeast and garlic are sometimes recommended in natural flea prevention contexts. The evidence for brewer's yeast as a flea deterrent is weak and inconsistent. Garlic is toxic to cats in any meaningful dose and should never be given to cats regardless of claimed flea prevention benefits. The honest assessment of natural flea prevention for cats is that no natural alternative currently available provides the reliable, measured, pharmaceutical-grade efficacy of conventional flea prevention products approved for cats. For cats in low-risk environments, indoor-only cats in regions with low flea pressure, natural approaches combined with diligent environmental management may provide adequate protection. For cats in higher-risk environments, cats with flea allergy dermatitis, or cats in regions with significant flea pressure, the efficacy gap between natural alternatives and pharmaceutical products is large enough that relying on natural prevention alone represents a meaningful welfare risk. The verdict. For the majority of cats, particularly those with any outdoor access or those in households with other pets who go outdoors, a pharmaceutical flea prevention product specifically approved for cats and used according to the label directions is the recommendation supported by evidence. The efficacy difference between pharmaceutical and natural approaches is significant enough to matter for your cat's health and comfort. The safety considerations are paramount and non-negotiable. Never use permethrin-containing products on cats or in environments where treated dogs will contact cats. Never use essential oil products containing tea tree, eucalyptus, pennyroyal, clove, or other oils known to be toxic to cats. Read every flea product label carefully before use and confirm it is specifically approved for use in cats. For owners who are committed to minimizing pharmaceutical exposure, the most defensible approach is to use the minimum effective pharmaceutical intervention, meaning treating only when flea risk is genuinely present and using products with the most targeted mechanism and best established safety record rather than broad-spectrum products, combined with rigorous environmental management to reduce flea burden. This approach acknowledges the efficacy limitation of purely natural alternatives while respecting the legitimate desire to minimize unnecessary pharmaceutical exposure. Your cat cannot tell you they are miserable from flea allergy dermatitis. They cannot tell you they have tapeworms. They can only scratch and groom excessively and show you the signs of a problem that was preventable. Prevention, chosen carefully with full attention to species-specific safety, is the most humane approach available. Comparison 10. Keeping cats separate at night versus letting them sleep together. This is the comparison that most multi-cat household owners have never thought about deliberately. The decision about where cats sleep at night, whether they have free access to each other and to the shared household spaces during the dark hours, or whether they are separated into different rooms or areas, is almost always made by default rather than by design. Either the cats figure out their own sleeping arrangements and the owner accepts whatever emerges, or the owner closes some doors at night for convenience or habit without thinking through what that separation means for the cats involved. The reason this comparison deserves serious attention is that nighttime represents a significant portion of your cat's shared life, and what happens during those hours affects their stress levels, their relationship with each other, their individual health, and in multi-cat households where conflict exists, whether that conflict escalates or remains manageable. Getting nighttime arrangements right is not a minor detail. It is a meaningful component of multi-cat household management that has real consequences for the cats involved. Let's start with the case for allowing cats to sleep together freely, because for harmonious multi-cat households, this is almost always the right approach, and the reasons are worth understanding completely. Cats who genuinely like each other, who have formed positive social bonds, derive real and measurable benefits from sleeping in proximity. The physical warmth of sleeping in contact with a bonded companion is not merely comfort in the colloquial sense. It is physiologically significant. Cats maintain their body temperature more efficiently when sleeping with a warm companion, which is why cats who sleep together are frequently observed in full contact positions, rather than simply near each other. The mutual thermoregulation is a functional benefit that reduces the metabolic cost of temperature maintenance during rest, which is why cats in the wild who form social groups sleep in contact when the temperature drops. Beyond thermoregulation, the social bonding that happens during shared sleep is genuinely significant for the cat's relationship. Cats who sleep together engage in mutual grooming during rest periods, reinforce social hierarchies through body positioning, and accumulate shared scent that strengthens their recognition of each other as members of the same social group. The scent sharing that happens through prolonged contact during sleep is one of the primary mechanisms through which cats maintain their social bonds. And separating bonded cats at night removes hours of this daily scent integration from their relationship. The anxiety reduction benefit of sleeping near a bonded companion is well documented in cats. Sleep is a period of vulnerability during which cats' stress hormone levels ideally drop to their lowest daily point, allowing the physiological restoration that adequate sleep provides. Cats who sleep with a bonded companion show lower cortisol levels during sleep and spend more time in deep, restorative sleep stages than cats sleeping alone in the same environment. The presence of a trusted companion during the vulnerable period of sleep provides a sense of security that translates into measurable physiological benefit. For cats who have not yet fully integrated but are in the process of building a relationship, supervised proximity during rest periods can actually accelerate the bonding process. Cats who sleep in the same room, even if not in contact, accumulate shared experience during a low-stress context, which builds positive associations more efficiently than forced daytime interaction. The quiet, low-arousal environment of nighttime rest is often the context where cats who are wary of each other during active periods first begin to tolerate and then to seek each other's proximity. Now let's talk about when separation at night is appropriate, because there are genuine situations where it is not just acceptable, but genuinely the better choice for the cats involved. Newly introduced cats who are still in the early stages of introduction should absolutely be separated at night, at least until the introduction process has progressed to the point where unsupervised daytime coexistence is reliably peaceful. The nighttime environment, with its reduced visibility, its potential for surprise encounters, and the absence of owner supervision to intervene if conflict escalates, is precisely the wrong context for cats who are still establishing their relationship. A negative encounter between cats during an unsupervised nighttime period can set back a carefully managed introduction by weeks. The introduction stage is the most important and most commonly violated context for nighttime separation. Owners who have managed a careful, gradual daytime introduction process sometimes undermine their progress by allowing unsupervised nighttime contact before the cats are genuinely ready. The rule is simple. If you would not be comfortable leaving the cats unsupervised together during the day, you should not leave them unsupervised together at night when your ability to intervene is further reduced by sleep. Cats with ongoing conflict who are being managed in a shared household represent the other primary situation where nighttime separation is genuinely protective. Multi-cat households where coexistence is achieved through management rather than genuine harmony, where one cat consistently intimidates or chases another, where resource competition creates regular tension, benefit from nighttime separation as a stress reduction measure for the less dominant cat. The opportunity to sleep without vigilance, without the constant awareness of a threatening companion, allows the subordinate cat to achieve the restorative sleep that chronic social stress prevents. Identifying whether your cat's nighttime interactions are positive, neutral, or negative requires some observation effort that many owners never make because it happens while they are asleep. Signs that nighttime interactions are causing problems include finding cats in different locations in the morning than where they started. Signs of nighttime activity that suggests chasing or conflict, such as disturbed furniture or objects, one cat showing signs of disrupted sleep or chronic fatigue, or one cat consistently seeking the owner's bed while the other remains elsewhere. These patterns suggest that the overnight period is not the peaceful shared time it might appear from the outside. Camera monitoring of shared spaces during nighttime periods is a genuinely useful tool for multi-cat household owners who are uncertain about what is happening between their cats during the hours they are asleep. Many owners are surprised by what they see. Cats who seem to coexist peacefully during observed daytime hours may have very different nighttime dynamics, either more conflict than the owner realized or more affectionate interaction than the owner would have predicted. The information gathered from a few nights of camera monitoring is invaluable for making good decisions about nighttime arrangements. The owner's bedroom is a specific nighttime territory that deserves its own consideration in multi-cat households. Many owners allow all their cats to sleep in the bedroom, which works beautifully for bonded cats, but can create significant problems when cats have conflict or when one cat uses the high-value territory of the owner's sleeping space as a resource to be controlled. A dominant cat who positions themselves between the owner and a subordinate cat, blocking the subordinate's access to the bed or to the owner, is engaging in resource-guarding behavior that may go unnoticed by the sleeping owner, but that is a source of ongoing stress for the subordinate cat. In households where this dynamic exists, limiting bedroom access to cats who can share the space without conflict, or providing multiple entry points and resting locations so that no cat controls access, addresses the problem more effectively than simply hoping it resolves. The quality of nighttime sleep for the owner is a legitimate consideration that deserves acknowledgement alongside the cat's welfare needs. Cats are crepuscular, most active at dawn and dusk, and the hours immediately before sunrise are a period of natural activity increase that can disrupt human sleep significantly. Cats who engage in predatory play, vocalize, knock things over, or engage in social interactions that generate noise during early morning hours create sleep disruption that accumulates into genuine health consequences for owners over time. For owners whose sleep quality is significantly compromised by nighttime cat activity, separating cats from the sleeping space or providing sufficient nighttime enrichment to redirect their energy away from sleep disruption is a legitimate welfare consideration for the human members of the household as well as the feline ones. The nighttime feeding consideration connects to the scheduled feeding comparison from the first video. Automatic feeders programmed to deliver a small meal in the early morning hours, timed to coincide with the natural activity peak that would otherwise manifest as owner-directed attention-seeking, redirect the cat's early morning energy toward eating rather than toward disrupting human sleep. This is one of the most practical applications of automatic feeding technology, and it addresses a common multi-cat household challenge without requiring any spatial separation. Senior cats and cats with health conditions that affect their nighttime comfort deserve specific mention. Cats with hyperthyroidism may be significantly more active and vocal at night than before their diagnosis because the elevated metabolic rate and associated anxiety of the condition disrupts normal sleep patterns. Cats with cognitive dysfunction syndrome may become disoriented and distressed during the night, vocalizing in a way that is both concerning for the owner and indicative of the cat's distress. Cats with arthritis may be more mobile and comfortable during the warm hours of the day, and more stiff and uncomfortable during the cooler, nighttime hours. Understanding the health context of any cat's nighttime behavior is important before making management decisions based on that behavior. The single cat household nighttime question is simpler, but still worth addressing. A solo cat who shares their owner's sleeping space has access to the warmth, security, and social proximity of their most important relationship during the vulnerable hours of sleep, and the benefits for the cat's emotional well-being are real. The only genuine argument against a single cat sleeping in the owner's bedroom is the owner's own sleep quality, which some people find is improved and others find is disrupted by feline bed companions. This is a personal decision with no wrong answer, and the cat's preferences, if they consistently seek the bedroom, are worth weighing alongside the owner's comfort. The verdict: for bonded cats in harmonious multi-cat households, free access to shared sleeping spaces, including the owner's bedroom, is the arrangement that best serves the cat's social, thermoregulatory, and psychological needs. The benefits of sleeping in proximity with trusted companions are real and physiologically meaningful, and restricting this access without reason removes a significant source of daily well-being from cats who would choose it freely. For cats, in the process of introduction, separation at night is essential until the introduction has progressed to the point where unsupervised daytime coexistence is reliably peaceful. Rushing nighttime integration before daytime integration is complete is one of the most common and most consequential mistakes in multi-cat household management. For cats with ongoing conflict or in households where one cat's nighttime behavior significantly disrupts the other's rest or the owner's sleep, thoughtful management of nighttime arrangements, including separation, automatic feeding, and camera monitoring to understand what is actually happening, serves everyone's welfare more effectively than simply hoping the situation resolves on its own. The nighttime hours are a significant portion of your cat's shared life. They are not a period to manage by default or to ignore because you are asleep. The arrangements you create for your cats during these hours reflect the same care and thoughtfulness that you bring to every other aspect of their welfare. And for cats who are fortunate enough to sleep in secure, warm proximity with companions they trust, and an owner who has created a genuinely safe and harmonious household, the nighttime hours are not something to manage at all. They are simply the peaceful, restorative end of a day well lived. closing 10 more decisions, 10 more verdicts, 10 more times where you walked into this video guessing and you are walking out knowing. Let's go through what you now understand that you didn't when we started. You know that the water bowl in the corner may be one of the most quietly consequential pieces of equipment in your cat's life, and that a fountain or multiple strategically placed water sources can meaningfully change your cat's kidney health trajectory over years. You know that the collar your cat wears every day is only safe if it is a breakaway collar, and that a standard collar is a genuine daily hazard dressed up as a safety measure. You know that shelter adoption and responsible breeder purchase are both legitimate paths to a wonderful companion, that the difference lies in your specific needs and the quality of the source, and that breed-specific rescue is the option most people never think to look for. You know that grain-free food is a marketing category rather than a nutritional one, that removing grains while adding legumes and potatoes does not reduce dietary carbohydrate in the way the marketing implies, and that the criteria that actually matter in cat food have nothing to do with whether the label says grain-free. You know that homemade cat food done properly requires professional veterinary nutritionist formulation and is genuinely excellent, and that homemade cat food done without that formulation is genuinely dangerous, and that the gap between these two realities is the most important thing to understand before deciding which category your homemade feeding falls into. You know that automatic feeders solve real problems for real owners, and that they cannot replace the appetite monitoring and relationship reinforcement that manual feeding provides, and that the hybrid approach of automating one meal and manually delivering the other captures the best of both. You know that Catios and leash training are both legitimate, meaningful ways to give indoor cats outdoor experience, that they provide different things, and that the combination of both is genuinely the best option for cats who will accept it and owners who can provide it. You know that hard carriers provide structural safety and veterinary handling advantages that soft carriers cannot fully replicate, that soft carriers are necessary for air travel, and that carrier training transforms the carrier from a source of dread into a familiar, safe space, regardless of which type you choose. You know that chemical flea prevention products approved specifically for cats are the most reliable protection available, that permethrin is acutely toxic to cats and must never be used in their environment, and that the efficacy gap between pharmaceutical and natural alternatives is large enough to matter for your cat's health and comfort. And you know that the nighttime hours in a multi-cat household are not a period to manage by default, that bonded cats benefit from sleeping together in ways that are physiologically and emotionally real, that newly introduced cats need separation until integration is genuinely complete, and that camera monitoring is the tool that tells you what is actually happening during the hours you are asleep. 2 videos, 28 comparisons, every major decision you will face as a cat owner, examined with the full weight of the research and the full honesty that your cat deserves. Here is what I want you to take from both of these videos together. Your cat experiences the consequences of every decision you make on their behalf. The bowl you choose, the food you buy, the collar you put on or take off, the carrier you train them to accept or drag them into, the nighttime arrangement you set up or ignore, the flea product you use or don't use. All of it shapes the quality, the length, and the daily experience of their life. They cannot read the research. They cannot advocate for themselves. They trust you completely with every aspect of their existence. That trust is the most profound thing a cat offers, and now you have the knowledge to honor it fully. Not perfectly. Perfectly is not available to anyone, but fully, with the best information available, with genuine understanding of what your cat needs and why they need it, with the capacity to make decisions based on evidence rather than assumptions, based on your cat's biology rather than convenient habits, based on what the research shows rather than what the marketing says. Your cat is counting on you. After these 2 videos, you are ready. If this series has given you something valuable, something that will change how you care for your cat starting today, please subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment telling us which of today's comparisons surprised you the most, or which change you are going to make first. Share these videos with every cat owner you know, because every cat deserves an owner who has this information. And check out our other master classes on this channel, where we go just as deep into every other dimension of feline care. We will see you in the next one, cat lovers.